Hello and welcome to the webinar series. I'm Hui Ling, your host for today. Today's session is titled Wily Online Library Best Practices, presented by Alejandra Basiela, Associate Director, Customer Training at Wily. Alejandra Basiela is an Associate Director, Customer Training for John Wiley and Sons. She currently manages the Global Training Program for Wily Research. Previously, she worked as a product manager for the Wily Researcher Academy and marketing manager for author marketing. During her 10 years at Wily, Alejandra also worked as an editor and project manager for textbooks and online courses. Alejandra is based in New York City. Before moving to the United States, she worked as a translator, teacher, and arts writer in Spain, where she earned a degree in Swan Translation and Interpreting Studies from the University of Alicante after completing courses in medicine and spending a semester in the University of Aberdeen studying international politics. She has completed studies in New York University and Pratt Institute in Learning Design and UX Design. Today's webinar is expected to last about an hour and will be recorded. The recording will be made available after the session has ended, and a link will be emailed to you. As always, we welcome questions from the audience. Please feel free to send through your questions anytime via the Ask a Question button located underneath the main video player, and stay with us till the end of the presentation for the Q&A. Over to Ellie, who will begin her presentation.
Thank you so much, Hui Ling, for the warm welcome. My name is Ale Barciela. I'm an Associate Director in Customer Training at Wiley, and it's a pleasure for me to be with you today. Thank you for making some time to learn more about Wiley online library resources, learning more about best practices. I know we are all very busy nowadays, and it's very difficult to book an entire hour or 45 minutes to learn more about something new or just get better at something that we already do. So I want to thank you in advance for that. As my colleague Hui Ling was mentioning, this session is being recorded, so all of you will be getting an email in the next, I believe, 24 hours with a link to the recording. So that's something you can watch again or share with others. I'm also happy to share my PowerPoint with you. Feel free to take notes, but if at some point you need the slides, I'm always very happy to share slides with you. I'll be sharing my email address with you towards the end of the session as well. I know we're not face-to-face, and this is the world we live in, right? Everything is virtual now, but I would love to make this as interactive as possible. So as the presentation moves forward, if you have any questions, if something is not quite clear, or if I'm going too fast, or you have any type of comments about what I'm explaining, I would love to hear from you. So feel free to use the question functionality to ask a question, and I'll try to make pauses throughout, but some of the questions will be addressed towards the end if that's okay with all of you. And I believe you also have access to some resources on the resource section. So I would encourage you to check this out at some point during the presentation. All right, having said that, this is what I have prepared for you today. Today, we're going to talk about some good practices, some best practices when accessing Wiley resources. Some of you may have access to some of our journals or the entire database of journals, or reference works, or online books. And today, I would love to focus a little bit more on reference works and online books, because I believe we normally talk about journals, but perhaps we don't talk that often about reference works and online books. And really, they share a lot of functionalities. Many of the things you do with a journal, you could do with a reference work or online book. But just in case, we're going to go through some of the things a user may want to do with those resources. So let me share just 1 second, the agenda with you. There you go. So we're going to talk about the commonalities and the differences among those resources, all of them available within the Wiley Online Library. And then we're going to talk about Boolean operators I know if you've attended some of our previous trainings, we sometimes talk about Boolean operators, and perhaps we don't talk about all of them in detail. So today we're going to do a deep dive and explain how Boolean operators work. The beauty about Boolean operators is that the Wiley online library platform supports Boolean operators, but as many of you may know, other platforms, other databases provided by different publishers may support also Boolean operators. So once you know how to use them and what for, that's a tool that you take with you and can bring somewhere else. I'll share some of the best practices for, when it comes to using the Wiley online library. A couple of functionalities that perhaps are not very well known or people may miss, which are search within and email alerts. I really believe that those two could save you time, particularly when working with books or reference works. Search within could be quite powerful. I'll do a live demo just to show you how to find different things and do some searches together. And then finally, before we wrap up, for those of you who are thinking about publishing with Wiley, I'll give you some resources and some tips to guide you a little bit through that process. So hopefully this agenda sounds good to you. Again, at any point, I welcome your questions and your comments, and I'll try my best to address them on the go. I may have to put them on hold to address them towards the end, depending on what I'm covering at the moment. All right, so within the Wiley online library, you're able to find a lot of content across different categories. We counted and we have 126 different categories, different disciplines and topics. And you can find journals, online books, or reference works related to those topics. Here on the screen, you only see a few. If you don't see your discipline, that doesn't mean that we don't have a journal for that. It's just a matter of space and just giving you a sample or a taste of our content. Reference works is really how we call our electronic encyclopedias. So we have over 200 electronic or online encyclopedias, and they have been written and edited by world-leading experts, including some Nobel laureates or society chairs. So award-winning authors that have created these encyclopedias. Some of them are considered through, like foundations for some industries. So I'll share with you some key examples of reference works during the live demo. Reference works and electronic encyclopedias are great for quick fact checking, but also, of course, allow you to do a more in-depth type of study. And as I was mentioning, we have over 225 different encyclopedias about very diverse topics like chemistry, life sciences, or social sciences. Online books, we also cover a wide range of topics like physical sciences, maths, or humanities, and we have over 22,000 online books. It goes without saying that these online resources are more important than ever, considering that many of us, we need to work from home, right? I've been working from home all year, and I think that's going to continue to happen for me in the next few months, right? So it's very important to be aware of the resources that we have access to through our employers or universities or libraries or institutions, and being able to get skilled and be comfortable accessing them online and making the most out of the functionalities of the online platform. What common features can we find across these different resources? I imagine that most of you are comfortable accessing articles from journals, but I know sometimes I hear that online books, how do I cite a chapter, or how do I access an article within a reference work, right? Perhaps are less well-known, and actually they all share all the common functionalities. For our articles in journals or online books or chapters or online encyclopedias, you'll often find sections like references or related reading, all with hyperlinks. So it makes it very easy for you to continue your search. Once you find something you like, you'll find a number of hyperlink recommendations. In general, I would say that the platform is very straightforward, but it's always good to attend these type of sessions in case you have missed some functionalities like how to download images or how to share content with others. The platform supports simple searching and also more complex type of searching using wildcards or Boolean operators. And we're going to talk more about Boolean operators today. In general, you're able to access this content either in HTML format, which is really like the website itself, right? When you run a search and you find an article, that's the HTML version when you find it right there on the website, or PDF, which allows you to download, print, and share. And of course, you're able to access all this content through different devices, like regular computers, laptops, but also tablets or iPhones. The entire design is responsive. So that means that it adapts to the size of your screen. And you're also able to do the regular things a user may want to do, like export citation or download citations or share with others or download content. So hopefully all that makes sense. I do see on the chat a suggestion about how to search, and I'll try to use that example later on for my live demo, so bear with me. Let's take a look at some Boolean operators. Some of you may use them, some of them may not. If you want to share with us on the chat if you've used Boolean operators and if they're helpful or not, I would love to hear from you. But again, my recommendation would be to try to give them a try, because once you start working with them, they will save you time. So Boolean operators are the words and, or, and not, and they're always capitalized. And the Wiley Online Library platform supports these operators, so you're able to use them on the search bar to support your searches. And also quotation marks could be considered Boolean operators. And I'm going to tell you what they do exactly and the difference between and, or, not, and quotation marks. So quotation marks, you normally use quotation marks when you need to find some terms appearing right next to each other exactly in that order. And I'll show you an example later, but just to illustrate this right now, I may want to find information about social media, right? So I may want to put the terms social media between quotation marks. And all the results that I get will be showing social media right on that order next to each other. If I don't put the word social media between quotation marks, I will be getting a lot of results. Some of them, all of them will include the words social and media, but not necessarily next to each other and not necessarily in that order. Okay, just bear with me because I believe I got disconnected from the platform. I apologize. So just bear with me 1 second while I go back to my slides. In the meantime, if you're currently using Boolean operators and want to tell me more about those on the chat, I'm happy to read your recommendations and your experience working with those. And I'll also give you some time if you have any questions so far about what I've explained regarding online books, reference works, the differences, and the functionalities. Yeah, I do see some comments here popping up on the chat. And somebody's asking me if I'm going to be able to demonstrate the use of Boolean operators. Yes, definitely. I'm first going to show you what they are and how they work, and then I'll demonstrate through a live demo how they work. And also thank you to those that are reporting that I had a glitch with the video. You were very quick to report that, so thanks for letting me know. All right, so going back to where we were, we talk about quotation marks. So, and, how does it work? And is basically a Boolean operator that I would use if I want to find two terms together on a same search result. So I want my two terms to appear on the same result. I don't have to run two different searches and kind of like compare them. I could just run one search using one search bar and those two terms together with that Boolean operator. Or will allow me to run one single search and give me options. So if I'm debating between two terms and I don't know which one to use, this is perfect for synonyms and words that mean almost the same or are very similar, or terms that are kind of interchangeable. This is ideal. So if I don't care if my results include the term global warming or include the term climate change, I know they're not the same, but sometimes, you know, I may be equally interested in resources that mention one or the other one. I may want to use that Boolean operator. And then the last Boolean operator is not. So not will allow me to remove some results, exclude some terms from my search. So you gotta be cautious with this one, but it could allow you to remove some noise. So let's see some examples of this. Quotation marks, as I was mentioning, I want to use quotation marks around a phrase or a number of words, and I want those words to appear in that order. For instance, social services. This search is only gonna give me results where the word social services appear right in that order next to each other. And if I don't use quotation marks, I'm still gonna get results. I'm still gonna get results that include both terms, just not in that order. So it would be the equivalent of using social and services. And narrows a search by basically telling the database that all keywords must be found in an article for it to appear in your results list. So if I'm looking for results related to history, the history of photography in particular, if I use history and photography, I'm going to get exactly that intersection between history and photography. So all the results where I see both terms, that's what I'm going to get. However, when I use or, we're kind of, instead of narrowing down the search, we're broadening our search. We're basically telling the database that I'm indifferent, you know, any of these words could be acceptable to me. So this is very helpful, as I was mentioning before, when I'm searching for synonyms. In this case, I'm using an example related to wine. So if I am indifferent, if I have no preference between getting results where the words viticulture appears or grape growing, I could use this Boolean operator, viticulture or grape growing. Grape growing is two terms. I'm going to put that in quotation marks, right? And I could also, so that's going to expand my results, right? I'm going to get all of them together in one single search. And I could add multiple terms. I could say viticulture or viniculture or grape growing or winemaking or wine growing, right? And any other. This is just a simple example with wine. But just to give you the idea of how it could allow me to find results that perhaps, because I'm not thinking of the right term, right? If you're kind of fixated on one term and you're not finding the right book, the right journal, take a step back and maybe think if you could consider other terms that are also broadly using in your industry or in your discipline or are becoming more popular, right? Sometimes there are trends in terms of the terms that are being used. So hopefully this helps you locate the relevant content as well. So moving to the next Boolean operator, we have not. So not is going to narrow your search, basically telling the platform to eliminate all terms that go after it, that go after not. This could be helpful if you're looking for something very specific, but you want to remove some noise. So be careful with this one. Imagine that I'm looking for information related to communication. I want books related to communication, but I see on my results a lot of books related to marketing, and it's not really what I want. Perhaps I'm focused on other aspects of communications. I could say communication, not marketing, and I would be focusing on the green area here. I would be getting all the results that are related to communication, but do not include the word marketing. So again, think about how you want to use this strategically, because it could be easy to, remove some relevant results too. So I'll show you more examples about this one later on when we do the live demo, but hopefully you're getting an understanding on how this works as well. So let me, okay. And of course, all these operators, you could combine them. So once you feel comfortable with one or two of them, you could combine them all. I could say things like social media between quotation marks, or social network, also quotation marks. I could put that between parentheses. So that's kind of like prioritizing that and creating a sense of hierarchy in the command. And then I could also add and communication. So what I'm telling the platform with that is that basically I do want the word communication to appear in all my results, but I also want either social media or social network to appear in every result. I don't care which one because, for my purposes, they're both, either it's going to be helpful, right? So hopefully this is kind of, giving you an understanding on how they work and why they could save you time. Once you spend the time to figure out a good operator or a good command, you could go back to that one over and over, set up an alert, and don't have to get too creative every time, right? You could save it and run that search over and over. All right. And finally, we also have what we call wildcards. So you could also use some other signs to allow you to find the content faster. For instance, question marks. If I use a question mark on the search bar, that question mark is going to replace or represent a single character. A good example could be, the English word women or woman, plural or singular. If I'm indifferent, I don't care or I don't have a preference between this term appearing in singular or plural. Again, to my purposes, either could be fine. I may want to replace that character that varies from E to A with a question mark. And that way I would be getting either. I would be getting both in my results. If I use an asterisk, I'm going to be replacing or representing one or more characters. So for instance, if I type plant asterisk, I'm going to find results where, that term appears with that root. So I would be finding plant, plants, planting, and maybe other variations of that word. Obviously, you want to come up with a good root for your word. It wouldn't be good to use a prefix because that's, you may find a lot of words that start with PRE, right? And then if you put an asterisk after that, you're going to find so much noise, so many irrelevant results. But if you find a good root and replace just like 1, 2, 3 characters with the asterisk, you may be surprised on how effective your searches become. Another good example would be words that in English, perhaps American English or British English or Old English, they have a different spelling. So anemia, it's a good example, as you can see. I may want to use an asterisk and get both. All right, and just remember that wildcards cannot be used as the start at the start of a search term. I cannot type asterisk tension or when searching for phrases in quotes. So when you're using quotation marks, don't use the asterisk. All right, so hopefully this was useful. Maybe some of you were already using some of these techniques. Perhaps you ran into something new that you would like to try right away. You know, I would encourage you that if you want to go right now to the Wiley Online Library platform and try to run a search with me while I do the live demo, you know, be my guest. And that way you make the most out of this webinar with me. What other best practices should we keep in mind? So oftentimes when you're looking for online encyclopedias or reference works, you may locate an online encyclopedia that you are interested in. For instance, Ullmann's for chemistry, it's a very well-known reference work or encyclopedia. But then once you locate that, those files are very large and you're going to have multiple volumes that belong to that encyclopedia. So many times you may want to do a search within that is going to allow you to just run a search within a specific encyclopedia or within a specific reference work. So I'm going to show you how to do that on the live demo. But basically that's a command that you're going to be able to use once you are on the page of the reference work or encyclopedia or book or journal. It really works for all of them. Once you find a journal or an online book or reference work, on the top search bar, as you can see on the screen, you can click on that menu that I highlight in red and modify if you want to run a search anywhere on the Wiley Online Library or just within that reference work, within that journal, so or within that online book. That could be quite helpful. Another tip or best practice that I would share with you would be saving searches and setting up an alert. So I know that we're lucky to have access to resources through our employers or institutions or universities, right? And I don't know about you, but sometimes I forget to take advantage and make the most out of these resources, right? We're all busy and we have access to a lot of information. So it could be helpful if you save a search and set up an alert, because that way the platform will start working for you and not the other way around. So imagine that you spend a few minutes trying to find the right terms to locate the resources that you want. Sometimes it's not easy to identify the good term. There are trends and multiple terms being used in your disciplines. So you spend some time trying to locate the good terms. Maybe you spend some time putting together some Boolean operators, a more advanced type of search. That's valuable time. You don't want to repeat that over and over and over. You may want to save it. So every time you run a search on the results page, on the top, as you can see highlighted in red, you have the button Save Search. So if you click on Save Search, not only you have the ability to save that search and access it in the future just with one click. You don't have to write down your keywords. You don't have to remember if you use Boolean operators and how they work. You just click again on your saved searches and run the save search again. And the second benefit would be setting up an alert. So imagine that I run my search and I find 20 results and I'm very happy about them. Perhaps they are helpful to work on a presentation or just do some quick fact checking. I may want to know when something new is published about that search. So if you set up an alert, once you have a new result, instead of 2021 or 22 or 23, you will be getting an email notification straight into your inbox telling you, hey, Alejandra, you have a new result here waiting for you, right? So I don't have to wonder if there is new research published, there are any new books or any new articles on our reference board, I'm just getting that email notification that is already telling me. So I would encourage you to try to give that a try. You know, if you're running a search today with me, or later on, or tomorrow once we have all this fresh in our heads, try to run a search, save it, and set up an alert, and see how that works for you. My other recommendation would be maybe use bookmarks, and this is an easy one, but again, just to automatize your searches a little bit more. If you're doing some literature review, if you're preparing for a manuscript or a presentation or a thesis, regardless of your level of experience or where you are in your career, just marking those resources that you're interested in with bookmarks, adding those to favorites so that you can go back to those quickly in the future. Another best practice here, and this is great for those of you who present in conferences or in class or in front of your colleagues, and you want to use figures, charts, or illustrations, and they need to be high resolution, right? They need to be in high resolution. Sometimes it's tricky. How do I cite a figure? How do I cite a chart from an article, right? Well, you could save a lot of time trying to figure this out and use the functionality of downloading figures of the Wiley Online Library. So imagine that I find an article or a chapter of a book, and I locate a graph that is amazing, or a table, or some type of visual representation. I have the ability to download this as a JPEG file in high resolution, or even as a PowerPoint slide, and that would be my favorite. Because if you download it as a PowerPoint file, it comes with the citation, so you don't have to wonder how it's cited, and also it comes with a title. So it's a very nice package, and it takes a few seconds just to download. It's ready to go. It's ready for you to incorporate in a presentation in PowerPoint. And also, of course, one of the main things that you want to do is cite content, either a chapter or a full book, or an article from an online encyclopedia. You want to cite content. You want to give credit to others, even if you agree, don't agree, right? But citing is a best practice here. And not only you have the ability to cite, but also to download citations. And then once you download them, you can use different software to modify the style or just manage your citations. All right, so I'm going to show you how to download content for books. It's very easy. Here, for instance, I'm showing you a book, which is the Fundamentals of Photonics. So every time you are on a page of a book, you'll see a brief description of the book or the author biography, and further below, you'll see the table of contents. So the table of contents allows you to go straight into a chapter. If I'm looking for something specific, like ray optics, I may want to go straight to chapter 1, or I could browse, right? And maybe I don't know what I want, I could browse, but you always have the ability to click on direct chapters. And below the table of contents, as you can see, download full book, it gives you the opportunity to download the entire book in PDF. It takes seconds, so it's very, very easy to work with. And obviously, once you have the PDF, you're able to print it, download it, or keep it offline in your computer. And here, every time you access a chapter, it gives you the opportunity to either read it on HTML version or always download in PDF. And every time you click on the PDF button, you also have the chance to download the full book. So if you see a chapter that is really interesting and you think, you know what, I want the entire book, you may want to go for it and download the entire book, and it takes just a couple of seconds. As you can see on the right side of the screen, you have a number of keywords. All that is hyperlinked. So if you're interested in semiconductors and suddenly I see a keyword that is interesting to me, like photons. I may want to click there, and it's going to run a search for me automatically. So very nice when you're doing literature research. And this is just an example of a PDF, right? Like very straightforward. You could download it, save it for your records, or print. All right, so let's do a quick live demo. I just want to show you how different Boolean operators work and a couple of the best practices that I have mentioned. I'm also going to make a pause here to take a look at the chat. So if you have any other questions, this is probably a good moment for you to post your questions and submit them. That way I make sure that I have time to go through them. And one of the questions that actually I see on the chat is about having access to all this. So that's a great question. So on the Wiley Online Library, you have a number of resources that are available via subscription. So your university or library or your employer may be subscribed to some of our journals, all of our journals, all of our books, some of our books, or reference works, right? It's kind of case by case. So if you're not quite sure about which resources exactly you have access to, I would encourage you to check out with your library, your main librarian. They're really the experts in terms of the resources that you specifically have access to because you're affiliated to the institution you're affiliated to, right? So they're going to be able to tell you the list of resources from Wiley you have access to and other publishers, right? You may want to know all the resources you have access to since you're reaching out to your librarian. I also want to say that many of our journals are open access. So you're going to be able to, regardless of the subscriptions, access many of our journals and full text of those articles. So open access is a different type of model in which you don't require a subscription. I also want to mention that all the content related to COVID-19 and coronavirus is available for free right now to anyone, anywhere. And this is the way we have to support the research community and really the global communities through the major health crisis we're going through. Okay, so I'm going to go to the live demo. Okay. All right, so bear with me while I do that. Okay, so you should be able to see my browser momentarily. Okay, so I'm going to the Wiley Online Library. This is the Wiley Online Library. The URL is right here. If you want to run a search with me and use some Boolean operators at the same time, feel free to do it. It's onlinelibrary.wiley.com. Something very important nowadays is to make sure that you're accessing remotely successfully. So normally many of the institutions, libraries, and universities or employers, they grant us access to all the subscriptions that they have through IP authentication or geolocalization. So that means that when I'm in my office or when you're in campus or if you're in your hospital, you're connected to your Wi-Fi of your employer or university. They recognize you, they recognize your IP, and they grant you access to all the content they're subscribed to. So normally for us, it's invisible, right? We're not aware of those steps. However, now many of us are working remotely. And it's important to make sure that we follow the right steps to authenticate or access remotely. So in my case, I access via VPN. I connect to the VPN of Wiley and I'm able to see Access by Wiley. So every library could be a little bit different, but we do support a number of different remote access options. And there's more information right here. So you may want to first connect to either VPN, your employer, or the library page using your credentials for your university, and then come here. So as long as you see access by and the name of your institution, that means that thumbs up, you were able to authenticate your access successfully. If you don't see that, or if you're not quite sure about how to authenticate access, my recommendation would be talk to your main librarian, and they can walk you step by step through that remote access. So let's run a search here together. As many of you may know, today is election night in the US. I'm located in New York, I'm based in New York, and today is election day. So imagine that I am interested in learning more about published research related to elections. I could type the word election, and I'm sure this is going to bring me a lot of results. I'm just going to go ahead and show this to you. And as I was anticipating, yes, I have over 600,000 results for election. I'm going to browse and explore some results. I see that I have a number of resources like chapters from books, articles from encyclopedias, and also articles from journals like political studies. So it's a good mix, and I'm excited. But suddenly I run into other results, like there is this chapter, it's called election, and it's related to algorithms. And I wonder if this is related to what I'm looking for or not, right? So perhaps, of course, election is not a very specific term, and it could be used in different disciplines, not necessarily when we're talking about politics. So I may want to be a little bit more specific and use a Boolean operator. So if I want to add, for instance, poll, because I want to learn more about like the polls and the elections in general, I could use this Boolean operator and then run my search. And now I see that I have considerably reduced the number of results. I still have a lot. 33,000 is a lot of results, right? But I don't have the 600,000, which was almost unmanageable. And I see my results now, and I see that I'm getting closer, and I find things that are relevant to me, right? I even see some cases like the US, UK, different countries being mentioned here. If I want to use more Boolean operators and multiple words, you may want to go, you could use multiple here, but my recommendation would be just to tidy up a little bit, go to the advanced search. So if you click on advanced search, you're able to combine different rows and different terms. When you use and, this is exactly the same than doing this. So, you could always come to the advanced search and add multiple terms, each one in a different bar, and it would be exactly the same of staying in one bar and adding and, just for you to know. So here, I'm interested in published research related to polls and elections, and I also want to know more about voting by mail and, postal voting, right? So I realized that there are, postal voting, voting by mail, they mean the same, and I don't want to pick one term, right? So I could use both. I could say postal or mail, and I'm using this different Boolean operator, and I'm broadening my search. I don't have to, get married to one of those terms. I could just use this Boolean operator and keep my options open. And now I can run my search. So let's take a look at my results. I have a good amount of results here, and I'm able to see highlighted in blue my keywords. So I see different words, polls, elections. Normally plural and singular, it looks for both. Polling. So very interesting. Keep in mind that you could always go to advanced search, and I have not really modified the criteria. By default, it's anywhere, but you could make it so that some of your words appear in the title and other words appear on the abstract. So you could modify this and play with this, and maybe I want to put Russia and just find results here, and I have a perfect match, right? So feel free to play with that and see how that works for you. I was using the word voting too, and I could add more things here. So if I want to use vote or voting, I may want to use the asterisk, right? Because I don't mind, so I could just use that root and run my search. So I would encourage you to give this a try and play with terms that are relevant to you, to your discipline, to your projects, and see how that works, right? They're very easy. And once you know how to use Boolean operators here, you may have access to other databases that also support Boolean operators. If you are looking for just, let's see, if I want to find results about that mention the US, but for instance, I don't want not UK, because I saw that there were some results. I saw before that there were many results about the UK or Britain. If I just want to focus on the US, perhaps I want to use this Boolean operator, right? So again, it's just a matter of playing with them and seeing how they behave. I also want to show you how to do the search within and downloading the PowerPoint image, which I think they're pretty cool, they're pretty interesting. Oh, but before I do that, so as you can see here, you have the ability to save your search by using this button. Every time you use some of these features, you may need to log in. If you don't have an account with the Wiley Online Library, it takes a couple of minutes to set up one. You don't need your administrator to do that for you, and it's for free. So this account is just going to help you authenticate or remember your authentication and do things like adding bookmarks or saving searches or setting up alerts. So I could just log in with my credentials. If I don't have an account, it takes a couple of minutes to set one. You save your search, and I could name it anyway. So US election poll search. And this is just for me. Nobody else is going to read how I save this. I can set up an alert to send me an email if there are any new results on a weekly basis, monthly basis, or never. Monthly is probably good. Weekly, it depends on your needs. So it's really up to you. If I want to run a search within, let's find a reference work. So I was mentioning before Ullman, which is a very important encyclopedia for industrial chemistry. So I know the name, so as soon as I start typing, I see that popping up here. And I could select it. And this is the page of the reference work. So I see a number of topics. Imagine if you compare the experience of using an online encyclopedia to using a print encyclopedia, how great this is, right? The amount of time that you're able to save just by using this search within or just these topics, it just helps you so much to find the relevant content faster. So here, if I'm looking for information related to energy, I could type energy, and it's going to show me all the articles that are part of this encyclopedia related to energy. And here, I'm able to find information about batteries, coal, fuel cells, and other information. If I'm looking for something and I don't think I find it, I don't know where to find it, this encyclopedia is so large, I may want to come here to the search bar, making sure I select this reference work and type my keyword here. So if I'm looking for solar energy related information within this encyclopedia, I could type solar energy. And as you can see, I'm using another Boolean operator. I'm using quotation marks, right? to make sure that really that term appears, this phrase appears the same way, and run my search. And actually, there are 50 related results only within this encyclopedia where solar energy appears. I see that this one appears on the title, and these ones, they don't show in the title, so I may need to go through the articles to determine if they're relevant or not. I see photoelectricity here. Here, you know, you could also play with staying, doing this search within. If I'm in different wind, energy, could run this search and use this Boolean operator and still staying here, right? So, oh, I think I changed it, right? Sorry about that. So making sure that I stay within this reference work, I could use Boolean operators, wind energy, and find more results. So I encourage you to test that. You could also check the refine search and add more search bars here and combine more terms. And as you can see, the filter that I have here is Ullmann's Encyclopedia of Industrial Chemistry. So it means that all the results are being filtered and they have to be published there. If at some point I don't want this, I could just click here and remove it, right? Okay, so I want to go back to the slides. I want to make sure I have some time to go through some questions and give you some recommendations if you want to submit your article or get published. So bear with me while I do that. This is probably a good time for, if you have any questions, put them on the chat as we start to wrap up the sessions. And going back to my slides. Okay, I have great questions here in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and read some of them if that's okay with you. So one of the questions that I got on the chat is, can we still save search if we are accessing using our institution login? I am afraid that, so if you do the authentication or the IP authentication or VPN, that's great. That means you're able to successfully access all the content your institution is subscribed to. However, if you want to save searches, set up email alerts, add to favorites, use the bookmarks, right, that we have discussed, you need to have an account with the Wiley Online Library. And the main reason is for us to be able to customize and personalize your experience and send you those emails. We just need your email address. We need your information, right? It takes a couple of minutes to set up an account if you don't have one. It's at no cost, and you're not going to run into any type of like pricing issues or anything like that. It's something completely for free that allows you to customize your experience in the way of, you know, saving searches, etc. So I would encourage you to create an account because it's very easy and you don't need your main librarian to help you out. Another question that I have here is, what is the best feature of Wiley Online Library compared to other similar platforms? Well, I would say a couple of things. So the first thing would be the content. Wiley is one of the top 5 academic publishers in the world. We've been, you know, working for over 200 years, and we have published the work of over 450 Nobel laureates. So it goes without saying that the content that Wiley publishes is extremely high quality. So that would be the main reason. And then also the platform, as you could see, very straightforward. So the Wiley Online Library, it's like the Google of the Wiley research, right? It's the platform where you go, you run your search, and you find Wiley research published there, right? So the fact that it's so easy, I think it's an advantage. You don't need something very, very, very sophisticated to be able to find the relevant content. Of course, there are some features that, you know, are more advanced, and it's always worth to spend some time to master those, or the Boolean operators, right? But for beginners or for any person, regardless of how frequently they use databases, this is a very easy to use one, and I get great content. So my recommendation would be, this is a great start. You have attended this webinar, so hopefully you feel more equipped to start using more often these resources. And it's just practicing, just going to the platform, typing some keywords, start small, and then start getting acquainted with the resources that you have access to. And if, we run these events quite often. So every month or so we have trainings, we talk about different things of the platform. Keep attending if you want to develop more knowledge about how to master the platform. And of course, we're always available if you have any specific questions for your searches. Let me check. Yeah, so I know some of you suggested specific words for me to use for the search. I don't think I'm going to have time, unfortunately, to use all of your suggestions. I used some, but hopefully the examples that I used were helpful and clear enough to allow you to use your terms, right? And remember, if you're using more than one word, so if you're indifferent about agricultural waste or plant waste, remember, put between quotation marks agricultural waste and then or, and between quotation marks plant waste, right? And remember, you can use multiple bars to find content too. How many Boolean operators can we use in one string search? That's a great question. I don't know what the maximum number is. I do know that the more you use, the fewer results you're going to get. So it really depends on the terms that you're going to be using. Well, if you use or a lot, you're going to get a lot of results, right? But if you use and not, you're becoming more restrictive with your results. So you may want just to try. I normally use like 3 or 4, and that's already a good number. But remember, you could always go to the advanced search and use multiple bars there, and maybe it's a more tidy way to use Boolean operators. All right, so let me check more questions here. So some of you are asking if I could recommend sites to download journals and ebooks for free. Again, I would recommend you to go straight into the Wiley online library. We have resources that are for free. So even if you're not subscribed to everything, or if you're only subscribed to some resources, some of our resources are available for free or available as open access, which means no subscription required. So you may want to give that a try. And if you have questions about your subscriptions, or you would love to get access to something, feel free to reach out to us directly or reach out to your librarian, and they can always work with us to grant you access. All right, so I know we're running out of time. For those of you who are thinking about publishing with Wiley, I want to share with you some resources. We have an excellent, well, just before we move to that section, we have a great quick guide for online books. So if you ever need to review any of this content about how do online books work, how do I download a chapter, we have everything explained in this guide, and the same for reference works. We have a training hub with a lot of short videos and guides that explain many of the things that I have explained today. We also have a number of resources for librarians, including promotional materials. So let us know if that's your case. And if you're thinking about publishing, well, let's suppose that I identify this journal, the Australian Journal of Grape and Wine Research. We were talking about wine before, so I'm keeping the same topic for this example. If you locate a journal that you're interested in and you would like to publish your manuscript here, my first recommendation would be to read the overview and really make sure that this is the right journal for you. I know sometimes articles or manuscripts are rejected because they are sent to the wrong journal. And what it means is that they're sent to a journal that doesn't fully match the scope. The scope and the objectives don't match those of the manuscript. So I would recommend you to read the overview, where you can find information about the scope and objectives of the journal. And I would also recommend you to check the author guidelines. The author guidelines are going to indicate exactly how your manuscript should be presented in terms of format, extension, data that you need to include, and many other details. It's basically like the recipe for your manuscript. So very important to follow this. And unfortunately, every journal has their own author guidelines, even within a publisher. So you do need to read those before making your submission. And once you do that, on the right side, you can see that you have a button, Submit Your Article. So you can go there and click and submit your article, and you will start a process where you can submit your article, provide some data, etc. So hopefully that's useful. And we just want to tell you that we support our authors in every single step of the publishing process through submission, publication, and even after through promotion as well. So we have tools like the Journal Finder, which is a free tool that would allow you to find some potential matches, some good journals for your manuscripts. So here, if you just type the title of your manuscript and your abstract, it's going to give you 5 suggestions of Wiley journals that could be a good match for your manuscript. We also have Wiley editing services. This is a paid service most of the times, which helps you with design, manuscript formatting, illustrations, or translations. And we also have a number of author webinars where we talk about peer review or open access or how to prepare your manuscript. So hopefully these resources are helpful to you. We also have a page called Author Services that includes a lot of free information about every step of the publication process, how to pick the right journal, what to expect during peer review, how to promote your journal, your manuscript once published to maximize the visibility. And here you can also find information about open access if you're curious, or the author dashboard, which is the platform we use for publication, which is very easy to use. So a lot of resources we covered today. I want to share with you my email address. I know we couldn't really go through all the great questions that you submitted. So if you have any pressing questions and you would like to run those by me or get advice, I'm always happy to hear from you. It may take me a few days to get back to you. Sometimes we get a lot of questions at once, but I always respond. So feel free to reach out to me, send me an email, and I'll be happy to help out the best I can. And at this point, let's see, I'm just going to quickly browse through some questions. Another great question. I'm going to do 2 more questions very quickly, 2 or 3 questions. So another question is asking if we can access the resources from the Wiley online library anytime. Yes, so anytime, anywhere. Again, remember the authentication that is important. If you're in campus, you may not have to do anything. You directly, or if you're in your office, you may be able to access to the subscribed content right away. If you're working remotely or traveling, you may have to do an extra step. And again, you may want to check with your main librarian to make sure you authenticate your access successfully. And yes, another question is, are all the search items can be accessed? Are those under open access? Yeah, so when you run a search, you're going to find a combination of open access and subscription, but we do have a filter for open access. So if for any reason you're just looking for resources available in open access, you should first run your search and then use the filters on the left, and there's one filter for open access. So that could be quite helpful. Another question is about some books. Why some books only provide partial access rather than full access? Probably this depends on your subscription. If you have access to that book because it's something that your library or university has acquired access, you should be able to access the entire book. If you don't do the authentication, you may see like the front matter or back matter or the intro chapters are available for free. That's very natural. That's very common. And maybe you don't have access to other chapters just because either your library is not subscribed to or you have not done the authentication properly. So in any case, I would bring that to the attention of your librarian to find out if you're able to, if you already have access to that and if you're able to, authenticate yourself and to be able to read it all. And someone else is asking if we need to subscribe before accessing the Wiley Online Library. No, actually, you could just go ahead to onlinelibrary.wiley.com and start browsing and run searches. And again, I think we have over 5,000 resources available for free related to coronavirus and COVID-19. So you could start reading those right away. We have a lot of content available in open access. You don't need a subscription for that. So I would encourage you to go ahead and start browsing, find things that you like. And if you run into something that you think you don't have access to, bring that up to your librarian because they are able to work with us and grant you access. All right, so I think we're over time, and we do have more questions, but I don't have time to go through all of them. So I apologize if I'm not able to answer all of your questions. I do want to thank you for your time and your excellent questions. I do hope that this was a great use of your time, a good use of your time. I hope that you're able to walk away with a better knowledge of Boolean operators, more tools to run efficient searches, a better understanding of the resources that Wiley has ready for you. And again, reach out to us if you have any questions. Huiling, I'm ready to say goodbye. If you want to say something else before we say goodbye to our audience.
All right. Thank you, both Ellie and the audience, for joining us today. I hope all of you find that this information that Ellie shared is useful. Have a good day ahead and see you at our next webinar. Goodbye.
Thank you so much. Goodbye, everyone. Take care.